When I was younger, I shared a room with my sister. We had a bunk bed, and I always slept on the top bunk while she took the bottom. Our nights were usually quiet and uneventful, filled with the usual sibling chatter before drifting off to sleep. I never thought much about the top bunk, other than enjoying the slight sense of adventure it gave me. One night, in the middle of the night, I woke up suddenly. My heart was pounding, and I felt an overwhelming sense of fear. Before I could even comprehend what was happening, I felt a tight grip on my foot. It was as if someone was squeezing it with all their might. My immediate thought was that it must be my sister playing a prank on me, trying to scare me. I listened closely, expecting to hear my sister's muffled laughter. Instead, I heard her deep, steady snores. She was sound asleep, completely oblivious to my growing panic. The realization hit me like a ton of bricks. It couldn't be her. The grip on my foot tightened, and I tried desperately to pull my foot away, but it felt like it was locked in place by some unseen force. My heart raced, and I felt tears of fear welling up in my eyes. Then, as suddenly as it had started, the grip released. I lay there, frozen, my breath coming in ragged gasps. I slowly peeked over the edge of the bed, expecting to see someone or something below, but there was nothing, just the familiar sight of our darkened room and my sister sleeping soundly. I didn't sleep for the rest of the night, too scared to close my eyes, afraid that whatever had grabbed me would come back. From that night on, I never felt completely at ease in the top bunk. Every little sound and movement would jolt me awake, my mind racing back to that terrifying grip on my foot. I told my sister about it the next day, but she just laughed it off, saying I must have been dreaming. But I knew it was real. I felt it. To this day, I still wonder what really happened that night and what kind of entity could have been in our room. The fear and curiosity linger, a reminder of the unexplained and the unknown that can sometimes invade the most familiar of places.
When I was 13, my life at home was pretty normal, at least until the strange occurrences began. It all started one quiet evening. I was in my room, finishing up some homework, when I heard my sister's voice calling my name from the hallway. "Hey, can you come here for a second?" she said. Without a second thought, I got up and went to find her. But when I stepped into the hallway, it was empty. I checked her room, but she wasn't there. Confused, I shrugged it off and went back to my room, thinking maybe she had already gone downstairs or something. But then it happened again. This time, it was my mother's voice calling me from the kitchen. I called back, "Coming, Mom," and walked to the kitchen, only to find it completely empty too. The house was quiet, with no sign of my mom or my sister. I started to feel a chill run down my spine. This wasn't just my imagination playing tricks on me. Something was definitely off. Every time I heard their voices calling me, I would respond and find no one there. It was as if the house itself was playing some cruel joke on me. But deep down, I knew it was something much more sinister. The voices didn't stop. In fact, they became more frequent and persistent. It seemed like every other hour, I'd hear my sister or my mom calling my name from different parts of the house. Sometimes it was a soft, casual call, and other times it was urgent, almost desperate. Every time I responded, I was met with the same unnerving emptiness. It wasn't just the voices anymore. I started to hear knocking on my bedroom door, 3 sharp raps that echoed through the silent house. The first few times, I rushed to open the door, expecting to see one of my family members needing something. But the hallway would always be empty, the air thick with a strange, oppressive presence. The fear began to creep into every part of my life. I started to dread being alone in the house, but even when my family was around, the strange occurrences didn't stop. My parents and sister would be in the living room, and I'd hear a voice calling me from upstairs. I'd look at them, seeing that they hadn't moved or said a word. It was maddening. The constant imitations and knocks made it clear that this was no prank. Something otherworldly was targeting me, making me feel watched and vulnerable. The atmosphere in the house grew tense, and my sense of security was slipping away. Whatever was haunting me was getting bolder, and I was terrified of what might come next. One night, things took a terrifying turn. I was lying in bed, trying to fall asleep, when I felt it, an unmistakable pressure on my chest. At first, I thought it was just my mind playing tricks on me, but then the pressure grew stronger. I looked down, and to my horror, I could clearly feel the shape of a hand pressing against my chest. Panic surged through me. I tried to scream, but the fear seemed to choke the sound in my throat. My heart was pounding so hard it felt like it would burst out of my chest. I reached up, trying to grasp at whatever was holding me down, but there was nothing there, just the cold, crushing sensation of invisible fingers. The pressure was unbearable. I struggled to breathe, every gasp feeling like a desperate fight for air. My body was paralyzed with fear, and all I could think was that this was the end, that this entity had finally found a way to harm me physically. Summoning every ounce of strength I had, I let out the loudest, most primal scream I could muster. The sound tore through the silence, and just like that, the pressure vanished. I was left gasping, tears streaming down my face as I clutched my chest. The sensation of the hand lingered, a ghostly imprint that I couldn't shake off. I lay there in the darkness, shaking and trying to make sense of what had just happened. The reality of the haunting had become undeniable. This wasn't just about eerie voices or mysterious knocks anymore. This entity had reached out and touched me, leaving me with a terror that would haunt my nights for years to come. After that night, I knew I couldn't face this alone. I told my family about the voices, the knocking, and the terrifying encounter with the invisible hand. My parents listened with a mix of concern and skepticism, but my sister's face paled when I mentioned the physical touch. She admitted to feeling strange sensations in the house as well, though nothing as severe as what I had experienced. Desperate for answers, we decided to seek help. We contacted a local priest, hoping for some spiritual guidance. He came to our house, blessed each room, and said prayers to cleanse our home of any malevolent spirits. For a while, the house felt lighter, and the eerie occurrences seemed to cease. I began to hope that maybe the nightmare was over, but the peace was short-lived. The voices returned, now more mocking and sinister. The knocking grew louder, echoing through the house at all hours. I could sense the presence growing stronger, feeding off our fear. The nights were the worst. I'd lie awake, dreading the moment when I'd feel that crushing pressure on my chest again. My parents, now convinced that something was seriously wrong, reached out to a paranormal investigator. He brought equipment to monitor the house, recording any unusual activity. The results were chilling. The recordings captured faint whispers, eerie footsteps, and cold spots throughout the house. Despite all the efforts to rid our home of this entity, nothing seemed to work. The fear was always there, lurking in the shadows, making every creak and whisper a potential threat. The haunting had become a part of our daily lives, and I was left to grapple with the reality that this malevolent force had no intention of leaving us in peace. Even now, as I reflect on those harrowing experiences, I can't fully comprehend what happened. The fear I felt was unlike anything I've ever known, and it left a lasting mark on my psyche. Moving away from that house was supposed to bring relief, but the memories linger, haunting me like the ghost that tormented my family. After we left, the paranormal investigator continued to visit, trying to understand the phenomenon. He shared stories of other hauntings, but none quite matched the intensity of what we endured. I found some comfort in knowing we weren't alone in our experiences, but it didn't erase the terror. To this day, the events have left me with lingering questions. Was it a spirit attached to the house, or something darker that had fixated on me? Why did it imitate the voices of my loved ones? And most chilling of all, why did it choose to physically interact with me? I often wake in the middle of the night, heart pounding, convinced that I can feel that cold, invisible hand pressing down on my chest again. I've become hyper-aware of my surroundings, every creak and shadow setting me on edge. The sense of vulnerability and dread is something I can't shake off. This experience has fundamentally changed me. I used to be a skeptic, brushing off ghost stories and supernatural claims. Now, I'm a firm believer in the unseen, knowing firsthand that there are things in this world that defy explanation. The haunting may have ended, but the fear remains, a constant reminder of the thin veil between our world and whatever lies beyond.